Masechet Megilah, Daf 32, Lamed Bet, Lev, because this is such a beloved Masechet, and we plan to complete Masechet Megilah, and we begin with a very interesting halacha, Tenora Banan, Makom shemafsikin b'Shabbat shacharit, sham korin b'mincha, b'mincha sham korin b'sheni, b'sheni sham korin b'chamishi, b'chamishi sham korin l'Shabbat haba'at ibdei Rabbi Meir. Okay, this is not what we do. According to this, the place where we end on Shabbat morning to read the Parashat HaShavua, we start there at that point during Mincha in the afternoon. Well, that is what we do. But then, let's say we read one Aliyah during Mincha. So then on Monday, we're going to continue reading from where we left off on Saturday afternoon. So let's say we'll read Sheni on Monday. And wherever we left off on Monday, we pick up from the end and continue reading on Thursday. And so I'll say that's Shilishi. And then on Shabbat, you can start from the end, start from there and read from Revi'i on. And so according to the Rabbi Meir, all the readings are cumulative, and therefore the Parashat HaShavua will only be about 60% of the length of what we have today. However, there's another opinion. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Makom shemafsikin b'Shabbat shacharit, sham korin b'mincha, b'sheni u b'chamishi v'lashabbat haba'ah. So no, it's according to him, the place where you stopped reading on Shabbat morning at the end of Parashat HaShavua, you start with the next pasuk and you start at the same place, Shabbat mincha, Monday, Thursday, and the next Shabbat. You keep repeating that first aliyah, and that is what we do. And it seems the reason is because most people come and hear the Parashat HaShavua on Shabbat morning. Not so many people come in the afternoon and during the week. And therefore, we want to make sure everyone hears the entire Torah. And so everyone comes on Shabbat morning. And that seems like that was the case back then and is still the case now. And that way, those who do go to Minyan can get there on Monday and Thursday will learn Torah, learn some Torah. We don't want to go 3 days without learning any Torah, and will represent the rest of the community. And that way, the people that can't make it are busy going out to the field, going out to work, will be able to hear the whole thing. Amar Rabbi Zera. Okay. Halacha, makom shemafsikin b'Shabbat shacharit, sham korin b'mincha, b'sheni b'chamishi, Shabbat haba'ah. Rabbi Zera was a braita. Rabbi Zera now says the halacha is, in fact, like the second opinion quoted, that we start from the same place all of those days and keep repeating Rishon. Now, question: V'lema halacha ke Rabbi Yehuda? Why doesn't he simply say halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda? Why does he have to repeat all the whole word? Isn't it a lot easier just to memorize the laws like Rabbi Yehuda? Answer is mishum de'afchilehu, because there are some people that have this braita in the opposite, with opposite names. They switch the names and say this is Rabbi Yehuda and this is Rabbi Meir. And therefore, you might get confused. So which baraita do you mean when you say halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda? Therefore, it's a lot clearer just to say what the content of the halacha is, because attributions are sometimes mixed up. Okay, this is very interesting because it brings up the question in general of how often can we generally trust attributions. This would be except we don't have another baraita here that says and some people say the opposite. There are some Tanaim, some memorizers that now are quoted and say, yeah, we have the opposite. Is this the general rule or is this the exception? Hopefully, it's the exception, and that's why it points it out here. Because other times we do say halacha ke Rabbi X and Y, but it does show you the difficulty of keeping the name straight to make sure we know who said what. Okay. By the way, this is the opinion in our Mishnah. Also, the Mishnah only quotes one opinion, and it is this one, the second one, and that's really interesting because our Mishnah is anonymous. Generally, we have a rule that Stam Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, and an anonymous Mishnah we assume is the opinion of Rabbi Meir. If, however, this baraita is correct, then the anonymous Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda, not Rabbi Meir. So I think that general rule means it's a general rule. Most of the time, an anonymous Mishnah follows Rabbi Meir. His formulation, his curriculum was considered the most accurate, the best by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and so he chose it in general. It doesn't mean necessarily that every single anonymous Mishnah has to be Rabbi Meir. And when we see an exception, well, those are exceptions. Okay, Tenora Banan, another braita. Poteach vero'eh, golel umevarech, Another machloket between the same two sages. Rabbi Meir says, if someone, when you get an aliyah, you should open up the Torah. In those days, they had rolling ones like Ashkenazim and the Spanish do today, not the upright ones that the Edot HaMizrach have. So but the same would be true. You open it up, you look for the place where you're going to read, and then you roll it back closed, say the beracha, roll it open again, and then read. What is the reason for this? Well, you want to see the word that you're reading before you say the beracha for two reasons. Number one, if you say the beracha without looking for the place, then you're going to have separation. You're going to have to stop. We'll find the place. Where is it? And we want the beracha to be immediately followed by the Torah reading. So you want to make sure you know exactly where you're going to go. Also, because you're saying the beracha about the Torah in general is true, but you're saying it about the specific section that you're going to read. And there is even an opinion that says if you find the wrong place, if you look at the wrong place, let's say it's the same word by dabed, and you go the wrong one, and then it's a problem because you didn't say the beracha on the words that you're going to read. You said it on the wrong words. Okay, in the end, if that happens, we don't say another beracha because the beracha is also on the whole Torah that we are blessing. Thank you, Hashem, noten ha-Torah, right? But so that's the second reason. That's why you have to look at the place before you say the beracha. But then after you close it up and say the beracha and open it back up. The Gemara will explain the reason. However, the Yehuda Omer, potech v'ro'eh u'mevarech v'koreh. Yehuda agrees that yes, you have to open it and look at the place first, and then say the beracha, but he doesn't think you have to close it again to say the beracha and open it again after the beracha. There's no need for that. That's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Okay, my tamad Rabbi Meir. Why does Rabbi Meir say open it, close it, and open it again? Oh, he's going to borrow a reason from Ola, who says regarding a different halacha, that the Baal Koreh should not help out the translator. Generally, there were two people that would stand up there. The Baal Koreh, he usually is the one that also got the Aliyah. He'd be reading the Hebrew original text from the Sefer Torah. And then you had the translator who would not be reading from anything. He would memorize the Aramaic and tell people the Aramaic. Now, if he forgets a word, or two, other people can help him, but the Baal Koreh should not be helping him, because if that happens, then people will say, oh, I guess the Aramaic is also written in the Torah. Sometimes we have chumashim, with mikra and unkelus on the side, or sometimes even right in the middle for people that read Shatai Mikra V'Echad Targum. So people are going to think, oh, look, the Baal Koreh, he must have the original Hebrew and the Aramaic right there in the Torah. And they're not all seeing the Sefer Torah. They just see that he knows it and he's giving a hints to the other guy. And therefore, he should not be the one help. If he needs a helper, let someone else do it, so that people don't say that the Aramaic is written in Torah. Now that we know that halacha ula, we can apply the same logic here. If someone would open the Torah, look at the place where he is, and while looking at that says Birkot HaTorah, Shebachar Ba'al Mikol Amim, people are going to think that he's reading the beracha from within the text of the Torah. And it's not true that beracha is not in the Torah. Therefore, he should close it again, say the beracha, and then open and read. Okay, that's the reasoning of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda agrees with the halacha of Ula, but he thinks that it's not the same logic. Regarding Targum, people will make a mistake because the content is the same, right? You're reading the Hebrew, you're reading the Aramaic. It looks like it's reading in there. It's easy to make a mistake. But the beracha is a little short paragraph that everybody knows. If it's someone saying, right? Every kid who has a bar mitzvah, even if they are not very observant, you can find Jews all over the place that had bar mitzvah. They remember that forever. So they'll recognize the beracha, and they're not going to make a mistake and say, oh, that he's reading from the Torah. It's something that you repeat all the time. Therefore, the Yehuda says, don't worry about it. Good. Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Matana. We had Rabbi Zera already before. Halacha poteach v'ro'eh umevarech v'koreh. And she says halacha is like the simpler, the more lenient, which is you just open it, look at the place, and then say the beracha and read. You don't have to close it up and then open it again. And in fact, that is the halacha lema'aseh in Shulchan Aruch. You don't have to close it and open it back again. Nevertheless, there are many people that do have a custom of covering it. So the Edot HaMizrach Torah comes with a kerchief that's strung on top, and then you open it, look for the place, and take the kerchief or a talit or something and cover it while saying the berachot, and then open it again. So you see, it's not an absolute halacha that's obligatory, but the custom does tend to follow the Rabbi Meir for this reason, out of general respect. So there you go. Now, a question, same Rabbi Zera, same question. Why does he say all the content? Just say the law is like Rabbi Yehuda. And the same answer, because some people have the version of this baraita, they have the name switched, and then they're going to say, well, you said like Rabbi Yehuda, but what did Rabbi Yehuda say, this way or the other way? So it's much clearer just to say what the content of the law is. Okay, once we're quoting Rabbi Zera, one more halacha. Amar Rabbi Zera, also in the name of Amar Rav Matana, haluchot vehabimot en bahem mishum kedusha. Wants to know that boards and platforms do not have sanctity. What is this referring to? Well, bima seems to be talking about the place where we put the Sefer Torah when we're reading it. It actually comes from a Greek word. It means like a stage where witnesses would go, and the lawyers would speak from. So it's some kind of a platform for reading the Torah. And this is not holy. Maybe it's the place upon which people are standing or something like that. And the luchot referring to boards. What kind of boards? Perhaps it's some kind of stand that people would put their scrolls on, not when reading Torah officially, but studying, children studying, or putting a Sefer Haftarah. So something that is somehow used and from time to time, and is not itself a sanctified object. That's one opinion. There's another interpretation altogether by the Aruch, which is very interesting, and it says the luchot and the bimot are the margins, the empty space in the Sefer Torah, and the Bible says a lot of empty space, right? And you'd cut it off, so that the margins don't have intrinsic kedusha, only where the writing is. And that'll be interesting to call the empty space the platform for the letters where they rest. Okay, Amar Rabbi Shefatya, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Hagolel Sefer Torah Sarich Shi'amidenu al hatefer. When you're rolling closed a Sefer Torah, then you should make sure that when you roll the two sides closed, that the seam is in the middle, the place where the two sheets are sewn together. The reason is because if someone would tighten it a little too much, it would pull at the seam, and that way, worst comes to worst, the seam will get undone. And that's relatively easy to fix. Whereas if you turn it to the page and then you tighten it too much, then the page might tear right in the middle of the writing. And then that will be impossible to fix. And so therefore, put the seam in the middle. Okay, Amar Rabbi Shefatya, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, same sages, another halacha. Hagolel Sefer Torah golelo mibachutz ve'eno golelo mibifnim. Okay, since the word golel seems to referring to turning it, so same thing is here. There's two interpretations of what this golel is. Rashi says, you're turning the Torah, you want to turn it from one place to another, and so maybe you put it on the table or you put it on your lap, horizontally, right, like this, parallel to your body. And so what he's saying is, if you're when you're rolling it, you should roll it from the outside roller. In other words, take the outside roller and roll it towards you. The reason is because if you take the inside, if you turn the inside roller, then you don't have control of the outside one, and the outside one might roll off your lap or roll off the table. So it's more respectful and more control to roll the outside one. Okay, that would be the halacha. And then the second part is But once you got to the place and now you're just tightening it, like you got to the place and you're gonna roll it closed, in that case, do it from the one that's closer to you. And the reason here would be so that everyone could see. If you're reaching over to the outside one, then you're covering the letters. And so you do the inside one so everybody can see where it is, and then you roll it closed. Okay, so that's all one interpretation of Rashi. Others interpret it where we're talking about Gililah and Hagba, all right, as Ashkenazim call it, or Levantar, as the Spanish call it, right? Once one person is going to lift it up and show everyone, and then sit down, and someone else is going to roll it and wrap it. So the halacha is the person wrapping it should wrap it from the outside. Generally, when you're holding it up, the text is facing the person holding it, and then when he sits down, right, and closes it up, the other person is standing on the other side, so he's going to wrap it from the outside, right? So the wrapping will first go on the outside, and then when he makes a knot, the knot should go where the face of the text is. So he wraps it from the outside. Sometimes they wrap it around a couple of times, depending on what kind of material they're using, and then put the knot in the front. That way, when they open it, they'll be able to put it down flat and open it from the front, and won't have to flip it over. And so that's good advice, and that is what is still done today. Another halacha in the name of the same sages. When you have 10 people, well, you need a minyan in order to read Sefer Torah officially. So when you have 10 people there, the greatest among them should be the one to do the Gililah. It's the greatest honor. Nowadays, we don't really follow this because, we give a greatest honor to the person that gets the aliyah, mashlim, maftir, shishi, whatever. And the Gililah is, physical work. Usually sometimes we give it to a young person, even to a child. But in those days, Rabbi Yochanan saying, this is the highest honor. Hagolelo notel sechar kulan. Damar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi asara shekaru b'Torah golel sefer Torah kibel sechar kulan. In fact, the one who rolls this Torah, rolls it back up at the end, receives the reward of all the people that read it beforehand. Now we clarify, sachar kulan sakadatech, ela ema kibel sachar keneged kulan. Wait, why should he take the reward of all of them? Everybody else, they studied the parasha, they know it, they went up, they said the berachot. Why should the last guy take away their reward? He said, no, we don't mean he takes it away. It means he receives reward equal to all of them. It's kind of like, when you have a relay race, right? So, the last person to do the relay race, if he wins, he gets all the praise, the honor, jumps up and down, right? It's the closer, the finisher, brings everything together and to a close. And so too, the person that does the final act of closing up the Sefer Torah, he gets equal reward to all the aliyot that came beforehand. The same sage teaches another halacha. Amar Rabbi Shefatya, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, minayin shemishtamishin bebat kol, shenemar ve'oznecha tishma'na davar me'acharecha lemor. How do you know that you may rely on a divine echo? This is something that's lower than nivu'ah. This kind of voice that appears from seemingly nowhere, is it reliable or not? And he says, yes, it's reliable, because a pasuk in Yeshaya talking about the end of days is going to say, and your ears are going to hear a word behind you saying, go this way, this is the way to walk. And you're going to turn around, there's no one there, right? It's just going to be a voice that you can hear in your mind that tells you where to go. But there are limitations, not just any voice. Maybe you're just hearing things. It has to be something unusual about it, like the voice of a male voice in a city, or a female voice in the field. I guess the idea is that usually it's the men that are going and working in the fields all day. And so if you hear a female voice in the field, well, there's no females around, must be something different. If it's a male voice, then probably just someone's talking to you. And the opposite, since all the men are in the field, so if you're in the town in the middle of the day, so there's more women there. And so it'd be usual to hear the voice of a woman in the town, but not the voice of a man. And so therefore, it's an unusual voice for the context. And also it repeats itself. And as when you're thinking, should I do this? And it says, yes, yes. So the repetition is also another sign of a kind of a vow or something that is sure to come, like we see with the dreams of Paro, right? They're doubled, and Yosef says they're doubled because they are sure to come. Okay, this is interesting because we also have another Gemara elsewhere says that lo b'shamayim hi en mashkichim bebat kol, right? When the voice came out in the Bet Midrash and said halacha kedebi Eliezer bechol makom, right? And then the Yehoshua stood up and said, sorry, lo b'shamayim, we don't listen to a bat kol. So that seems to contradict this. And perhaps the difference is there we're talking about halacha. Halacha is not decided by a bat kol, even if the bat kol is true. And it really is God's will and Hashem's voice through that bat call saying halacha should be like that. The halachic process doesn't work like that, right? Halacha does not depend on prophets. Even a true prophet, even the highest prophet in the world, except for Moshe Rabbeinu, cannot legislate law. And so therefore, it's just illegitimate for the decision of halacha. But when it comes to non-halacha, if someone just needs some advice and what should I do with my life? Or which way should I go? Should I buy or sell? And here's a bat call. So for personal advice, Rabbi Yochanan says you can rely on it if you can figure out these distinctions. Next, Amar Rabbi Shefatya, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kol hakore belo ne'ima, v'shoneh belo zimra, alav hakatuv omer, v'gam ani natati lahem chukim lo tovim. Beautiful halacha. Someone who reads Torah without a melody or studies Mishnah without a song. And Pasuk in Yechezkel says about that person, you see, Hashem says, I gave them laws that are not good because they're not enjoying it. Okay, what does it mean that he's reading without singing? Well, we know in the entire Tanakh, we have ta'amim mikra, trup. And they have, they're chanting, and they have tunes. There's a lot of different tunes in different communities, and different books have tunes. But when you read a pasuk with the ta'amim, first of all, you understand it better because you put the accent on the right place, you put the punctuation in the right place, and it also makes it memorable and more beautiful. And so too, even with Mishnah. Here's a manuscript, the Parma manuscript of the Mishnah. Not on every word, but on some words, you can see that there are, in fact, ta'amim, like hechsher here. There's an atnach, a mikdash atnach, right? There's atnach, there's a lot of places that tell you the place to pause. And there's also some others, like on the word hatahor. And these are reflective of a chanting tune that was used for the recitation of the Mishnah, and that we still use nowadays when we read Bameh Medlikin on Friday night in Bet Knesset, right? Bameh Medlikin. That's the Syrian tune, but Spanish have a different tune, and so that would be the tune. Whenever someone studied Mishnah, they would say it in that chanting tune, and that shows our love for learning Torah. Not just dry laws, right? But it's something that you make into a song. It reminds me of a Spanish poet who took the entire Shulchan Aruch and turned it into verse, rhyming verse, and kind of like azharot, all the mitzvot in rhyme, which just shows the love and the beauty of the Torah and halacha. Okay, so that's a very beautiful statement. Matkifla Abaye, hold on. Abaye challenges bishum delayada lebesume kala mishpatim lo yichyu bahem karit be. Wait a second. Just because a certain student doesn't have a nice voice, not everybody has a beautiful voice. And so just because he doesn't have a nice voice, you're going to tell him that the laws that he's learning are ones that are not good. And the continuation of pasuk is that you cannot live by. So that's not, it's not really fair. A person can still love it even if he doesn't have a nice voice. And so rather a second application of the same pasuk, which is you have two sages in one city, and they're not pleasant with each other regarding matters of halakha, right? They don't come to an agreement. Each one says, oh, he said that, he's wrong. What is he talking about? He doesn't know anything, right? And there's competition and jealousy. So people look at that and then they say, this the halakha is lo tovim. Why should we live by it? So this is a way of disgracing the Torah. But the opposite, when you have two sages and they come together and they agreement and they support each other, and even if they have machloket, they still do so. They still disagree respectfully. Then it increases the honor of the halacha and makes it something good that people do want to live by. Amar Rabbi Paranach, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Kol acher Sefer Torah Arom, Nikbad Arom. Anyone who holds a Sefer Torah naked will be buried naked. Okay, there are interpretations that talk about is it talking about the person or the Sefer Torah? Is that the person is naked? It's not nice to hold a Torah while naked. But the most interpreters say it's talking about the Sefer Torah. If one touches the Sefer Torah directly with one's hands without an intervening cloth, talit or handkerchief or the wood poles. So this is to keep some distance. You want to show respect for it, like we saw before, what makes one's hands tameh. So therefore, one should approach the Torah with respect and not touch it with bare hands, or else midah keneged midah, the person will be buried without burial shrouds. Adom sakadatech, and then we wonder, wait a second, is that really true? Not physically that we're not going to give the person burial shrouds and bury them naked. We never do that. But rather it means that he'll be naked from commandments. Wait, even that is a bit too harsh. Wait, the guy did mitzvot his whole life. And then, I don't know, one time or a few times he touched the Torah. Maybe he didn't know the halacha, whatever. He should be stripped of all of his mitzvot. Means that he's naked of that mitzvah that he should have gotten from doing Gililah, from reading the Torah, right? Then that one is lost. But that doesn't mean that the rest of his mitzvot are lost. Amar Rabbi Yanai bered Rabbi Yanai. Sabah, Mishmed Rabbi Yanai Rabah. Okay, so there's a lot of people named Rabbi Yanai, one named after each other. Perhaps if they're all a family. Well, some of them are a family, right? So it looks like two of them are a family in the name of another Rabbi Yanai, the great one. Maybe that was yet a grandfather. Mutav tigalel hamitpachat v'tigalel sefer Torah. This is when you're wrapping up a sefer Torah, you should leave the Torah in place and take the wrapper and put it under, go around, you pick up the Torah, put it under again, leave the Torah and move the wrapper, and not the opposite. You shouldn't lay out the cloth and then take the Torah and roll it into the cloth. That's not respectful for the Torah to keep having to roll the Torah. And finally, Vaydaber Moshe et Moadei Adonai el Bnei Israel misfatan shihu korin otan kol echad bechad bizmano. We learned from this pasuk in Vayikra that Moshe declared to Bnei Israel all of the appointed seasons, Moadei Hashem, all of the holidays. So what do you mean he declared to them of the holidays? He already told them when the holidays would be, but more than that, he explained it to them. And so we learned since Moshe did that, so we also, at every holiday, we should read a Torah portion that relates to that holiday. And we saw the whole list yesterday. Tenor Banan, Moshe tiken lahem l'Yisrael shiu shoalin v'doshin be'enyano shel yom, hilchot Pesach ba'Pesach, hilchot Aseret ba'Aseret, hilchot Chag be'Chag. Moshe further established for Israel that not only should you read the Torah portion on that day, right? But by then it's too late. Oh, today's Pesach. I didn't realize. I don't know anything about it. No, you got to prepare from before. And so therefore, people should begin asking questions, and the rabbis and sages should begin giving lectures regarding the upcoming holiday for the laws of Pesach. They should be done on Pesach, Aseret on Aseret, and the laws of Sukkot on Sukkot. So in other words, not only are you reading Torah, but also the derasha will be related to the parasha that you're reading and to the holiday, so people will know the laws. Okay, here it doesn't say that you start reading them before, but we did see elsewhere that you start learning the laws of Pesach 30 days before Pesach. And why are we ending Masechet Megilah with this? It has nothing to do with Purim. Maybe for this very reason, that when Purim ends, you're already 30 days before Pesach. So then, right, as we end Masechet Megilah, it already gives us a hint. Oh, start the next holiday and start learning about Pesach 30 days before. And with that, we complete Masechet Megilah, and we'll have a formal siyum tomorrow morning with after Shacharit. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Chazakim u'beruchim.